This is Talk of the Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. We are deep in the international break, but there's still lots to come on the show, including we open up our mailbag. Lots of you have been in touch after our request for questions. We'll do our best to answer as many of those across the show. We'll hear from former Manchester United striker Saha on the current man leading the line, Benjamin Sesko, and we'll also be joined by Charlotte Harpur to preview the new WSL season, which begins this weekend. Laurie's not with us, but Carl and Andy are here. How are we doing? Okay? Andy, you feeling any better?
Next question.
Okay. Carl, you all right?
Over-caffeinated. Keep going.
Same as last time then, both of you. Excellent. This feels like a brilliant place to start then with how you're feeling, Andy, because we're going to judge just how optimistic you are still feeling about Manchester United's season after the opening few matches, because our mailbag begins with a question from Ryan, who says, now the dust has settled on the window and the season's begun. Where do you predict United will finish? A lot of pundits have us 6th to 10th and then pile the pressure on. I mean, we've done this already a few weeks ago. I thought it'd be a good idea to revisit it because I think at least one of your answers was, we'll see after the transfer window closes. So what do you reckon?
I'm not going to change that. I think I said 6th. You might correct me if I'm wrong. I think we've seen some positive signs, particularly in the first game against Arsenal. Some major worries. I thought United played well in the first half of the second game against Fulham. Grimsby was an unmitigated disaster. It was a horrific. That first half was as bad as I've seen a Manchester United team play, given the calibre of the opponents. And then a wild game against Burnley where United were pretty impressive in the first half and we saw the same frailties in the second half. So I still have considerable worries. I don't think we're looking at the league champions-elect. I think that the signings are yet to properly arrive. I've been pretty encouraged by Cunha and Bruno. Sesko needs minutes and I'm looking forward in the games that we've got after the break to watching him hopefully start scoring and playing well. Be really intrigued what happens with the goalkeeping situation. I'm conscious that the games coming up are really difficult as well. So even if we're taking a judgment after 10 games, United will have played pretty much all the top teams in there. But then are you counting City as a top team? Because they're actually below Manchester United in the table. So there's been some surprises already. I'm not changing. I do have confidence that the summer transfer windows have been okay. I'm hoping for a big upturn from players like Ugarte, for example. He's been really disappointing when he's played. And that's where I'm at with it.
Okay, so Andy's pretty much where he was, Carl. Jack's asked us, can anyone state a claim of United finishing in the top 4? Are you going to go there, mate? Or
Sorry, mate. Can't do that.
No,
sorry. I predicted 8th before a ball was kicked. And any reason why I think United can finish higher than 8th probably has more to do with the fact that Aston Villa and Newcastle haven't looked very good, rather than Amorim's men looking better than I expected.
That Spurs defeat to Bournemouth made me feel better about things as far as they're concerned as well, to be honest.
Yeah, so I think United will be better, but will they be better to such a degree they're going to catch up ground to 2 or 3 other teams? I'm still unconvinced. And there's also that horrible feeling where, okay, maybe Aston Villa don't look as strong as they did last season, but you never know. There's another team in that shuffle that can figure something out. Brighton, okay. Brighton perhaps were their luck in places against Manchester City, but they were also good. Look, it's about reasonable growth here. I know one of the more constant questions we get in the mailbag is, what's a realistic transfer or what's a realistic opinion to have? Sometimes the realistic one is to say United are probably more likely to finish 8th than 5th. So, sorry.
Yeah. It's an interesting point, though, that Ryan makes, Carl. Do you not think that if people are saying United are going to finish 6th to 10th, well, even the way they've started this season, just looking at the average points per game, I know it's only been 3 matches in the Premier League, but 6th to 10th last season, you needed somewhere between 66 to 55 points. That's like 1.7 points per game or 1.5 points per game. Now, if United had drawn the game against Arsenal, they'd be well within that already.
Yeah. And this is I think this is the frustrating bit. If they had drawn against Arsenal, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And I think United are right. Let's be optimistic here. United haven't bedded in yet. What I expect Amran's strongest 11 to be, we haven't seen it yet. I've not seen that front three, that brand new 200 million front three start a game together yet. I cannot say with any confidence who the undisputed number one is yet. I need to see some of those bits better, and I want to see Cunha and Dorgu really start clicking on the left-hand side, because I think they're going to get on just fine. I'm really interested to see who becomes Mbeumo's number one partner at right wing back. So I think there'll be time and space for improvement. But also, when you are a team that is going from 15th to higher up that table, that time and space for improvement might also yield some disappointing and annoying results. So Arsenal defeat, that was annoying. We felt quite annoyed leaving Old Trafford. The 1-1 draw against Fulham, I felt annoyed there because it just, I can't say that more intelligently. So they're going to be better. Unfortunately, we do, and please, comment section, listeners, readers, please hold me to this. If I start pranging out after United were 2-0 up and then end up drawing 2-2, please remind me I said this team is going to finish 8th. So sometimes it is going to be throwing away a winning position to end up with a draw, or playing well but still unfortunately having a disappointing defeat. I'm going to try not to chicken little it, but also I still think they're going to finish closer to 8th than 5th.
Yeah, okay. I mean, and did you think the world is ready for United to finish 6th to 10th? Because, like Ryan's mentioning, really, the pressure's on already, isn't it? And 6th to 10th is not a startling season by any stretch. And you know, I know United finished 15th last season, but to be lower than 6th or 7th is, you know, unusual historically. In obviously in modern terms, it's a disaster to finish outside the European places like they did. So even getting up to the top half, they're still going to have some really bad days. I don't know if people are ready for that or not.
United had bad days even when they were winning everything. The point you mentioned about Europe is the key point here. Manchester United are aiming to get in European competition next season. I think that's important. If it's a Conference League, that will feel slightly deflating, but I would accept that over no European football.
Well, you'd like the trips.
Yeah, and other reasons. I think it's good for reasons I've explained before. I think it's good for the squads, good for the finances, etc. I think the Europa League is absolutely a target. I think it's a credible competition. It's more where Manchester United are at this moment, we hope. Can you see me head doing this? Because the minute I mention it, it just takes me back to Bilbao in May, and I just start to hate myself and hate the world once again. But, you know, if you finish in 10th, you're not getting into Europe next season. If you finish in 6th, you are getting into Europe, unless you win the FA Cup. So I do think there's a difference, significant point difference as well. So it will feed into the mood. If you finish in 6th, that's a 9-point, a 9-place increase, and 10th is 10th, innit? It sounds as bad as it looks, which isn't as bad as last season.
Yeah, Carl, you mentioned Cunha before, and Kane has actually asked us whether there's been any update on the injuries. There's Cunha and Mason Mount, of course, who were injured during that Burnley game. As far as I understand it, there won't be any update that we find out about, unless one of the players posts about it, I guess, on social media. And we have had a post from Cunha saying that he'll be back soon already. Until Ruben Amorim speaks at his next press conference, it was a policy in the past to issue updates on injuries and let fans know exactly what was going on with certain players' problems. I don't think that's going to be the case this season, so we'll have to wait a little while as to whether we keep Matheus Cunha in our FPL teams or not. Let's talk about one of the other new signings then, in Benjamin Sesko. Carl, you've been doing exactly that with the former Manchester United striker, Louis Saha, and this is an excerpt from Wednesday's episode of the Athletic FC podcast with Io, where Saha gave a detailed answer when asked about Benjamin Sesko's start to life at Old Trafford.
He's ready to join. I think physically he's not going to have a huge amount of things to do. Tactically, I think it's going to be the challenge because the team as well is in transition. What we know is the problems identified the last 3 or 4 years is having the responsibility as a number 9 or as a forward when you're young. When you're young, you're still learning, so you're making mistakes. You don't know how to connect with the players as much as maybe Bruno Fernandes, as much as you had like Ibrahimovic before, or players like Andy Cole and so on. So with Man United, especially, to have like young player with a lot of talents who's gonna disrupt, who's gonna actually bring unpredictability, but at the same time, you have experience where it's very reliable and going to actually pass on the information. This is not the case in the last 3 or 4 years. So it's been really a big mistake. And I think they've done it again. So there's going to be a tough challenge. But I think he's capable if, obviously, the manager managed to get that link between midfield and striker. Unfortunately, we didn't get the midfielder we wanted, so we're still very weak in that department. And this is why I think Sesko will struggle maybe a little bit until we get that sorted. I think he's got the quality. He's tall. I think he's going to score goals up in the air. All his movement is right up there, but get us where we want. I don't think that's going to be only him who needs to be spot on. So I do think that those two playmakers, Cunha and Mbeumo, will have to click on very soon, unless you will see Sesko struggling as well.
Yeah, fascinating to get Saha's take on this, Carl, and I'd recommend anyone going listening to the episode. He talks a lot about his adaptation to English football when he joined Newcastle first in 1999, coming to Old Trafford, and he's got some really interesting takes, which I think we'll maybe reflect on here as well if we can do. There's been quite a few headlines from the interview about that line he said there that Sesko will struggle. Now, I don't think this was Saha writing Benjamin Sesko off. It was more explaining how tough it's going to be for him to succeed, because from what he says, he's got all the qualities that he needs.
Yeah. Saha was gave two big thumbs up to Sesko's capabilities. He believes I liked his description of him in the air and how he thinks Sesko's going to score quite a few headers, which I'm very excited for. But he also was pretty realistic about the environment Sesko's walking into. This is not a football team that is immediately optimized to play him at his strengths. And this is not a team that creates goal-scoring chances for fun. So if you are a young striker and you perhaps need 5 chances a game because you might miss 2, that might be difficult as a Manchester United striker because the team is only perhaps going to generate you 2 good chances. So you need to really make the most of it. And I feel, at least my interpretation of what Saha was saying, it sounded as if he was trying to explain why Højlund found it difficult last season as well. So really, really interesting conversation to have with him. This is the second time I've spoken to him this year. Earlier this year, we spoke about his time as a United striker and how he sort of looked at his own capabilities when he first entered the dressing room and thought, okay, Van Nistelrooy is good at this, Scholes is good at this, Solskjaer is good at this. If I try and maximise my heading and hold-up play, I might be able to find a way into the first team lineup. And then how things sort of changed later on when Rooney and Ronaldo are beginning to emerge in the squad as well. And I think Saha is a little bit like a lot of our listeners who have wanted United to get a more experienced striker in to carry some of the goal-scoring burden away from Højlund and now Sesko. So really, really interesting conversation. Really enjoyed talking to him. Also, clearly, he had some problems with English food when he first came to this country.
Yeah, he did. One of the things he picks out, Andy, one thing with Louis Saha, during his time at United, if he wasn't doing it, Ruud van Nistelrooy was, or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was, or latterly Wayne Rooney was, or Carlos Tevez was, or Cristiano Ronaldo was, or even Alan Smith was. There was always a rotation of forwards around his time that any one of them could be on form at any moment, any one of them could be out of form, and obviously they'd make up for one another in the good and bad times. So that's a key difference, I think, to the United side now. But I think he made an interesting point in a different part of the conversation as well, where he said that he believes individuals at United are being given too much to do. So he picked out Bruno Fernandes, for example. He said Bruno is expected to lead the team as captain. He's expected to score the goals. He's expected to assist the goals, to take the set pieces, and to dictate the game tactically, rhythmically, the whole thing. And really, that's too much for just one player. He also cited Marcus Rashford as someone else who, maybe you're not playing to these lads' natural capabilities where you're asking them to be leaders in the team, as well as players to assist, as well as players to score. And actually during his time, and again, it's a totally different dressing room, I guess, and different characters and so on, but he was just told, just do what you're good at. And everyone else was asked to do the things that they were good at. And together, the sum of the parts made the team that Manchester United were, rather than expecting individuals to do too much.
I like listening to Saha talk about strikers. I think he speaks well. I thought his comment about the midfield being very weak was pretty strong, but the rest of it was pretty sensible, in my opinion. And he went into a team, as you said, where you had 3, 4, 5 top, if not world-class strikers, a winning team. And Rasmus Højlund, to his credit, in his exit interviews, when he realised Manchester United no longer wanted him, he kept saying, look, I'm still young, I'm still learning. And I think that is a fair point from Rasmus Højlund. There's a lot of pressure on Sesko, and he doesn't have the top players, the top strikers around him that teams of yore have had. But then Manchester United are not 30 years ago. This is Manchester United in 2025. We know it's going to take time. We know there's probably going to be more additions. The forward players have been boosted this summer with Mbeumo, although a native French speaker called him then Mbeumo.
I didn't want to correct him. And if he was on the podcast, I would have spoke to him, obviously.
Cunha as well. So looking at it one way, that there is a lot of talent in Manchester United's attack, but I think what he says is actually quite sensible. Don't expect too much, because the pressure will be phenomenal. The responsibility during a game, that overburden on Bruno, we could all see that last season. We had one of our fanzine front covers, at least we've still got Bruno, because without him, it would have been even worse. And I think this leadership group, the idea is that more leaders come out of the dressing room. The idea is that it's supposed to be a better dressing room, that some of the players who may not have been the most positive in that dressing room have now left the club. The mood should be better, but it's going to be difficult. You can see it already watching Sesko, but it's really, really early. I'm confident that he will succeed at Manchester United, and you hope that he gets the connections with Mbeumo's flicks and his crosses, or Dalot's crosses, and with Cunha. And it's exciting watching the development there. But we also need a realism. This is a team who finished 15th last season. And also responsibilities. There's one thing you hear consistently from former players, which I'm not sure is as true now, and that was responsibilities off the pitch, the commercial stuff. You hear that a lot. I spoke to, I think, Nemanja Matic this year, and he's played at 6, 7, 8 clubs, and nowhere were the commercial demands as much as at Manchester United. And Lou Van Gaal said that as well. And I think that has been checked a little bit, so that is for the better. But realistic words from a striker who knows what he's talking about. Sesko does not have Wayne Rooney or Cristiano Ronaldo alongside him, and would be a far better player if he did have, but he doesn't.
Okay, let's go back into some of your questions then. Midfield was an issue that Louis Saha wanted to talk about, and it is an issue that a lot of you want to talk about as well. And there's a solution, Karl Anker, that has been suggested, and I'm not sure it's ever been suggested before, so maybe you can have a look into this for us. Fabrizio and Tommy both had very similar questions. They were just a couple of the people who got in touch about this. But Fabrizio says, seen some people suggest that Lisandro Martinez could play in midfield. He played there for Ajax. There's increased competition now at left centre-back with Luke Shaw and Aidan Heaven. So do you think he's got the qualities to do it? And Tommy, in his message on Instagram, said that he believed he did have the passing skills to do it. So could Lisandro Martinez be the solution to Manchester United's midfield conundrum?
There is a interview Erik ten Hag did with ESPN Netherlands in 2021 where he said, Daley Blind does not have the running capacity to play in midfield, and neither does Martinez. And this was a quote I held into my analysis of Martinez when he arrived at Manchester United, and I did a little section in there. And yes, he has in the past played in defensive midfield. He played 22 matches, I believe, having looked it up earlier today.
You've looked into it. That's good.
But I believe if Lisandro Martinez was the solution to United central midfield woes, it probably would have happened under Erik ten Hag. If Ten Hag didn't think Martinez had the running capacity to do it in 2021 when they're in the Eredivisie, I think he very much didn't think he had the running capacity to do it in 2022 when they're in the Premier League together. And I especially think it's a bad idea to do it in 2025 after Martinez has had 2 serious knee injuries. I'm going to go back to the section we did about backing a manager and backing a player and hiding and looking at the strengths and weaknesses. Yes, Martinez is a good progressive passer for a centre-back. The majority of the time he's collecting the ball, in slower parts of build-up where he's already facing the direction in which he wants to pass. If you want to do that in central midfield, you're going to increase the amount of times he's going to be collecting the ball with his back towards where he wants to pass, and it's more congested, more attention. He is press resistant for a centre-back, but I'm not sure he will continue to be as good a passer if you push him into midfield. I think if we look at Martinez's weaknesses, he is very aggressive when he has to go defend out wide. If he has to, there's a time where he played left back against Mbeumo when Mbeumo was playing for Brentford last season, and his solution to defending a nippy winger was just to get incredibly touch tight to him and just wham, wham, wham. That worked against Mbeumo. It was less successful when Mohamed Salah decided to pull him over into deep waters during a certain fixture that still gives me the heebie-jeebies to this day. So big, wide areas of space for Martinez, he doesn't really like it as much. He prefers to be touch tight. He prefers smaller areas. And I think if you try to put him in defensive midfield in this United team, one that needs loads of running power and one that has Bruno Fernandes likely to push further forward because his natural inclination, you're going to put your Lisandro Martinez on an island after 2 massive knee injuries and go, could you cover for us? I think that's a very ill-advised way to let Lisandro Martinez readjust back to life at Manchester United. I know this is a question we've had a lot in the mailbag, and I think,
it's a lovely idea, isn't it? That the solution to the problem lies with the warrior who's already within the ranks, that he can come through, and I don't doubt he'd go for it. And reminds me a little bit of when there were midfield worries a year ago. Michael Carrick got a huge amount of criticism from Manchester United fans around 2010. And Patrice Evra decided that the solution in Manchester United's midfield lay with a Frenchman called Patrice Evra. Sir Alex Ferguson didn't quite agree with that, although there were times when he played defenders out of position. Famously, he played Fabio and Raphael in some big games, and he did really well.
Phil Neville against
Phil
Arsenal.
Neville.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
He did actually become a midfielder, I suppose.
Emergency centre back Michael Carrick.
Yeah,
in those,
and Darren Fletcher together at Fulham, wasn't it? Yeah.
Dropping deep. So there definitely has been times where this sort of positional shift has been successful under Sir Alex Ferguson, under a winning football team, a football team that has had other world-class talents elsewhere. I just think the best solution to United's midfield situation now the window is shut is not to try and move a fullback or a centre-back into central midfield, but to let Sesko Kone recover from his head injury, let him get a couple of games in the under-23s under his belt, and then see if he looks capable of making the jump into senior team football. Let's play the midfielders in midfield.
The best thing that they can do with Lisandro Martinez, like you said, Carl, is just to get him fit again. I mean, the guy has had so many problems since he joined Manchester United, and it's amazing because earlier on in his career, he had nothing like this. And it feels like ever since he arrived, certainly after the first season, it's been problem after problem for him. His broken foot, which then had to be operated on again, 2 knee injuries. This one's kept him out since February. So they just need to get him back fit, don't they? That's the best way they can help him. That's the best way he can help the team, is by being supported to return to full fitness, and hopefully he can contribute to this season, because I don't think he's far away, Andy, is he, from being available?
No, and a fit and available player, because he's also influential in the dressing room, and we know what his spirit is. And when I watch him when he comes back, it'll be as I watch Luke Shaw now. Don't get injured, and your confidence grows by 5% with each game.
Yeah.
But when he's playing well, I mean, he came back for the just before the FA Cup final in 2024, and he only played 2 games, and he didn't last the full game, but he was really important because I think the players look up to him. He's a big force there. So get him back, get him playing, because when he got that first injury against Sevilla, I remember speaking to Sevilla's manager, and he didn't know which football team I liked and supported, and he said we were helped tremendously because Manchester lost their best player, and it was Lisandro Martinez who we were referring to. Players do change positions. Some of them can do it better than others. Daley Blind was fantastic because he could play as a deep line midfielder and also as a central defensive. And I think he would have stayed at Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would definitely have kept him. They liked him a lot. Kobbie Mainoo didn't used to be a midfielder. Up until the age of 15, he was a striker.
He's playing out on the wing as well.
He wasn't quite quick enough to play in that role.
The first time in his career that he played number 6 was at Goodison Park on his Premier League debut from the start of a serious game. Unbelievable.
Incredible debut, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So there's all these bits which we can talk now and think, that might be interesting if that happens and if Martinez comes back, because the central defence actually looks quite settled, doesn't it, with De Ligt? And I don't think anyone has a problem if Harry Maguire fits in there. I'd love it to happen, but I share Carl's view in being slightly circumspect that it will happen.
Okay. Well, let's talk about a different aspect of midfield, Andy. We've had this question in from Steve. A lot of people sent this question in to us a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the transfer window, and it was worded pretty much like this. Should we have sold Bruno Fernandes? Now, Steve in his question adds on to bring in someone like Carlos Balebra or Adam Wharton. But that question about Bruno was asked so much throughout the summer. Anthony as well has contributed. Is there any sense that the club might look to offload Bruno next summer if a sizable bid comes in again? So lots of question marks about Bruno's future, despite him being so important.
I think it's a legitimate question, and you could argue that without him, the system might be more adaptable. But he was also Manchester United's best player by a distance last season. And if you're selling your best player, that's going to weaken you significantly. Is this team brave enough to do that? Should it even be doing that when he was so productive? And not just on the field, off it, a captain who does take on all those responsibilities, can actually knit the dressing room together, can speak 4 or 5 languages, and keep an eye out for the younger players and the Portuguese speakers and the different groups within Manchester United's dressing room. The facts are that he could have gone to Saudi Arabia. He could have earned a lot more money. He had conversation, which is entitled to, and it didn't go beyond that. Manchester United never received any offer for Bruno Fernandes, and that's because for that to happen, Bruno Fernandes would have had to say, yep, I'm up for it, and that's when negotiations would have started. It never got to that point. At the end of this season, I think you asked the question again, if there's a lot of money there for him, as I feel about him at the moment, he's too an important player for Manchester United. But if United finish 15th against this season, you can understand him going, I ain't sticking around anymore for this. But there's a lot more football to be played. He's been the best signing in the post-Ferguson era, and I think we should give him his stripes for that. He remains hugely influential, but he's not 21 years old anymore either. So he's one of the few players Manchester United could get a stupid amount for because he's that good. But for the time, he's a very important player.
Carl, another question along the same lines that we've had about Bruno Fernandes' future is if United were to sell him at some point next summer, beyond that, do they have a replacement there ready and waiting in Kobbie Mainoo? Because Amarin has said, despite playing them together in the matches since, that's how he made his decision on the team sheet. Is it Bruno Fernandes or is it Kobbie Mainoo? So Becky asked, do you think Mainoo is Bruno's long-term successor? James also asked as well, is this the perfect way of supporting Mainoo's development by playing him slowly throughout this period while he's still young, giving him time to then be able to step up at the point when Bruno Fernandes moves on? And he cites the example of Phil Foden and the way that Guardiola managed his minutes, despite a lot of people wanting to see him on the pitch more.
Foden's relationship with Pep Guardiola is a truly unique one. I believe there was something about Guardiola didn't want to send him out on loan because he didn't want him to be tainted by outside sources in his education or something along those lines. I think Mainoo might be a little bit more capable of travelling to Blackburn, for example. But this is midfield is going to be a huge point of conversation in summer 2026 because bullet point 1, Casemiro's contract expires, and I very much doubt Manchester United are going to want to extend that contract. So that leaves, let's say, 20 million a year off your wage bill and gives you a little bit more wiggle room. You will need to get a defensive midfielder unless Ugarte somehow has an incredible upturn of form across this season, which he might. But you'll need to get a body in to replace Casemiro. I think talking about Bruno Fernandes's future after the 2026 World Cup will be interesting because perhaps if Portugal have a very good tournament, he might say, I've accomplished all I need to have accomplished in Europe and maybe I do want to go to Saudi Arabia or the MLS or perhaps return back home to Portugal or go back to Udinese or something like that. Maybe that could be an option. Do I believe Manchester United have a long-term plan regarding Mainoo's future that is linked to Fernandes? Not particularly, because I don't particularly think Ineos/Manchester United are very good at having long-term plans and sticking to them. So while I'd love to think that they've got a big old bit on the calendar with certain color coding, and this is the bit where Mainoo plays, and this is when this is going to happen, and by this age, Mainoo's going to be good at this. I don't think that's actually being planned, if only because progress isn't linear. Injuries can happen and completely change situations. If Cunha and Mount are both out for the Manchester derby, to me, the most straightforward way of building a starting 11 is to move Bruno Fernandes to the left side of 10 and just play Mainoo next to Casemiro anyway. So who knows, is my short answer to a very long question that probably won't be solved until August 2026.
Or beyond that, let's see. Speaking of long-term planning, we've got a few more questions to squeeze in before we start the WSL preview. We're going to do these quick fire, if that's all right with you two. So Aaron says, Andy, you can start with this. It's 2030. Is Amorim still in charge?
Oh, that's hard. That's really hard.
He says, if not, how many managers have we gone through and how many trophies have we won?
I hope so, but recent history would suggest not. But I hope so.
I mean, if he was, that'd be the longest post-Ferguson manager.
Yeah.
And he'd be, I mean, in Premier League years, being a manager of the same club for 4 years, that makes you a granddad, doesn't it? So if he does, well done. That's huge upturn for the books.
Yeah, it depends what day it is and how he feels getting out of bed, because there'll be some days where he wants to quit and there's some days where he wants to be there to 2030 and beyond.
I really hope he went home and apologised to his children after that press conference. Because he didn't even offer it. Because he said, sometimes I hate my kids, but then he didn't hit me with the, sometimes I love them.
Sometimes I love my kids.
He didn't say that. And I'm just going, well, hang on. If I'm Ruben Jr., I'm going, Dad, could you say sorry? Can
you imagine, though, how boring Ruben Jr. would find watching his dad's press conferences? I mean, I know that if I try, even attempt to play the podcast to any of my family members, they switch off pretty quickly. Apart from my mum and dad, who are avid listeners, obviously, as you'd expect. Adam, Carl, you can take this one if that's all right. Next 5 games are City away, Chelsea at home, Brentford away, Sunderland at home, Liverpool away. What do you all consider an acceptable points return?
All right, I want to let's beat Chelsea, because we've got a good record there. Sunderland, positive result there. Avoid defeat at Anfield, so I'll call that a draw. And I quite fancy the derby, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Again, I think it's hanging out with you lot the last 2 or 3 years. I'm now really getting quite excited about the trips to the Etihad in a way that I didn't used to. So, I reckon United win the derby. It won't be fun. It won't be nice to watch, but they're going to scab it. So
you think United,
Carlos, let me work this out.
Yeah,
beat City 3 points, beat Chelsea 3 points, Brentford win as well. 3 points, Sunderland 3 points, and a point at Anfield. That's 3, 6, 9, 13 points.
Yeah, draw against Sunderland.
Carl reckons United are going to finish 8th. That's first, mate.
They're winning the league.
Winning the league if you win it now. 7, mate. I hate myself for saying it, but they're really tough fixtures. And Sunderland at Old Trafford. But Sunderland have won 2 of their opening 3 matches, haven't they? But Manchester United should be.
The other one was against
Sunderland.
Burnley. But yeah.
I was at it, mate. I was there.
Yeah, well, of course you were. You're a big Burnley fan. We know that.
No, you are. My mum reckons she's a Burnley fan. Do you know?
I've only...
You know why I went to Burnley? Do you know?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Yeah.
No. I know I've mentioned what. Do you know why?
Sorry, no. Benny and Hot?
No. Because on this podcast about 2 years ago, I made a comment that my mum says that Burnley are a second club. And the lad who's become the chief executive of Burnley heard it, remembered it, and invited my mum to a game to go
Did
back.
You take her?
I took her last Saturday.
I didn't know you took your mum.
I took my mum to Burnley, and she was treated fantastically well, and she loved it. And she said, I've not been up here since the Mills were here. I used to come all the time with my boss. I'm like, did my dad know? And I love the people up here. And then some Sunderland fans came up to us, said, just my type of people, working people. I love them, going to the match. She absolutely loved it. I'm like, Mum, you're not from Burnley. Why are you reinventing your past? What's the link? Well, I went out with a really nice lad from Burnley. Okay.
There it is.
Don't tell me anymore, Mum.
That's enough, Mum. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the reason
amazing.
why.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's all
fabulous. Okay. I'm going to go for 9 points for that period. I think they can get 3 wins from somewhere out of that. But we'll see. Like we said before, our Manchester United fans and the wider world, actually, who are very keen to tell us what we should be expecting of our own team. Are they ready for a run like that to maybe not go to plan if United are on course to finish somewhere between 6th and 10th? We'll see. Kieran, just to finish off this section, has asked, are there any details about new marginal gain strategies implemented at the club? That's a very Ineos term that we all anticipated would happen when they first made their investment. He said the pre-match routine move to Carrington seems to be part of this. Have they made the away dressing room freezing cold and smell of fish? I can answer both of these, I think. So the away dressing room isn't freezing cold, but it's probably not quite as hospitable as the home dressing room. It's considerably smaller as well. The Arsenal game at the start of the season when I was working, I had to step through the Arsenal players doing their activation exercises in the tunnel at Old Trafford, and obviously resist the temptation to stamp on anyone's foot as I walked through. So definitely, yes, the facilities for the away team are not quite as good, but that's not uncommon. That's the same every single stadium in the country. And I'm sure the Blundell Park away dressing room was very different to what the Old Trafford one is, for example. In terms of marginal gains, they have changed the pre-match routine for home matches. So since Erik ten Hag was in charge, they've been meeting at Old Trafford several hours before the game, having the pre-match meal there, having all the meetings with that facility that was built for Erik ten Hag's plans. They've now changed that so far this season to meet at Carrington, basically because the facilities are brand new there, and obviously the surroundings are a top class. So they then come together on the bus as well, which they stopped doing years ago because they used to meet at a hotel and then get the bus to Old Trafford and then get stuck in traffic. And there was that famous story of Jose Mourinho walking from Old Trafford cricket ground where the hotel was because he'd stayed there rather than staying in the city centre to try and beat the traffic, and walking down Matt Busby Way, Warwick Road, past everyone with his hood up on his way to manage Manchester United, which shouldn't that be the way that all managers arrive at Old Trafford anyway? Absolutely fantastic. Right, let's round it up there. Before we go any further though, I need to tell you about our live shows, because Manchester Talk the Devils live in November at New Century Hall is sold out. All the tickets have now gone for that. The good news is that they are still available for the moment in London, Belfast, Dublin and Cork. All the details for it are in the show description, but just to spell it out, Belfast, Limelight, October the 12th, Dublin, Vicar Street, October the 13th, Cork, the Opera House, October the 14th, and thank you to Kevin, who's pointed out that we might be clashing with the Republic of Ireland's international match that night. And yes, thank you for the invite to watch the second half with you, Kevin. Mine's a Beamish. And then London is in November on the 11th at Soho Theatre in Walthamstow. Like I say, all the ways to buy tickets are in the show description, and we'd love to see you there. Okay, let's preview then the new WSL season for Manchester United. It begins at the weekend at Leigh Sports Village against Leicester, and I'm delighted to say that Charlotte Harpur is joining us for this section. Charlotte, it's deadline day. You've already been darting off, taking calls and all sorts, so I don't know if I'm expecting you to last this section or not, but thank you for doing it with us.
Might be a little bit in and out. There's some movement further south in London.
Okay, that doesn't concern us for the time being, does it? Let's talk about Manchester United, because no doubt it's a huge September to kick things off for the club. Obviously, there is the Champions League qualification, final round of that, which we've talked about a little bit on the show before. United have got Brann in that competition. There's obviously the new WSL season kicking off. There's the end of the transfer window, which has brought a bit of a swap deal of sorts between United and City too. But how optimistic are you feeling about United's chances this season, just to set the scene, Charlotte?
Depends on expectations, right? And this has been a blessing and a curse for Manchester United women, is that they were reformed in 2018, and because Manchester United are a massive club with massive expectations, then you want to win stuff. And so in 7 years of their existence, where's your yardstick? And given that they've qualified for the Champions League and they finished really strongly last season in third, then top three has to be the benchmark at least. And, FA Cup success as well. Why not? Champions League, getting into the group stages would be, that next step for this club. But again, it's only 7 years old. So for people watching on YouTube, I'm holding my hand as if I'm a weighing scale.
Yeah, and I can understand why. Just in terms of the Champions League qualification then, obviously they've already impressed Elizabeth Turland in particular in the second round of the competition, getting past PSV and then beating Hammarby as well. It's Brann next up. How difficult is United's task to get into the league phase of the Champions League then? Because that's where they need to be. Last time it was PSG that halted them. This feels maybe more straightforward, but not easy by any stretch.
No, in comparison to PSG, this is a much kinder draw. Expectation is that Manchester United should progress. But it's difficult because players are coming in at different stages, off of pre-season, off of holiday, off of European championships, haven't quite got their rhythm yet. Manchester United are the team that have had to come back earliest of the WSL sides. So it's over a 2-leg tie as well, adds another element of complexity. But they should be feeling optimistic going into this draw.
United have got a bit of history with Brann, Andy, as well, haven't they?
Only a little bit. They've only played
tiny bit.
United had never played a Norwegian team in a competitive game until last season with Bodo Glimt. But for the men's team, there was one friendly against Brann. It was amidst the pre-season games of the treble season. And Brann's a second biggest city in Norway. It's a big football place. I've even heard comparisons with Manchester because it rains now and then there. But I spoke to a couple of people in Norway about the game, and in Brann, it's a pretty big deal. We used to have a lad who came with us from Bergen everywhere, like Istanbul away and all these mad games in the 90s, and he was called Viergaard, but none of us could pronounce it properly, so he just became known as Beergarden. Yeah, Beergarden, get us a pint in. And we just took him under our wing. We took him everywhere, and he was a great kid, still around, seeing when Man United played pre-season, and he could never pronounce like V's properly, Aston Villa or Port Vale, so we were pretty cruel on him. Who are United playing next week, mate? Knowing it'd be Aston Villa. But we looked after him, and he took us to Brann, and we stayed at his house when United played there. It's a big football town, and they're one of the best supported teams. The women's team are the best supported team in Norway by a distance, so I think there'll be a good crowd there. And they play the games, if I'm not mistaken, at the home team stadium, so it's like 17,000, 18,000. So I think it'll be a really, really big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's in a week's time. That's Thursday, the 11th of September, after United have started the season against Leicester on Sunday. There has been some controversy already, though, Charlotte, hasn't there? Where Manchester United and women's football goes, controversy seems to follow in recent seasons, or at least question marks about the way the club have treated the team or the attitude of the Ineos leadership. So this time it's about flights. Can you explain it?
Manchester United got a chartered flight out to Sweden for their second round qualifying mini tournament against PSV Eindhoven and Hammarby. And they flew back not on a chartered flight. They flew back on a commercial flight, which had a stopover in Copenhagen before arriving back at Manchester at around 10 o'clock on Sunday evening. Now, the players' leadership group were aware of this itinerary, as it's my understanding. Around 13 players decided to pay for their own flight to different destinations because they had 2 days off. So whether they decided to stay in Scandinavia or fly to Paris or fly to London. One player paid for a direct flight back to Manchester so she could get there as soon as possible. Now, the question is, why didn't Manchester United just fly back on a chartered flight if they went out there? Now, their argument is that from a performance perspective, they didn't have a game and they didn't have training and they had 2 days off. So when a club is trying to be sustainable, and we've heard of the cost-cutting measures that's affected the whole of their club, they made that decision. To avoid the aggro, just pay for the chartered flight. But you can understand, some people can understand that if the leadership group were aware of the itinerary and players weren't going back directly to Manchester, maybe if they had got a chartered flight, that might have influenced their decision. I don't know. That just get them back as soon as possible and get rested. And you've got an opening game of the WSL coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, there has been quite a lot said about the attitude of Ineos towards the women's side. Kevin is going to tell me off because I've already asked you about the flights back. But he's basically got in touch to say the relentless comments about Ratcliffe's lack of interest in the women's team is boring, in his words. They had a really good campaign last year, 2 great performances in the European Champions League qualifiers so far, 2 great additions to the squad. That's probably 3 now, in fairness, which we'll talk about in a moment, and looking good for the next qualifying match. Barada is supportive, as is Wilcox. They're upgrading the team smartly, piece by piece, in a clever way. I'm all for it. They're quietly thriving. Carl, what do you think?
I can certainly see that. Glass half full interpretation of things, right? It's, as Charlotte's already said, this is a football group that is 7 years old. They have reached 3 FA Cup finals, and they've won
in
FA Cup in a row. And they look now more of a surer bet to qualify for European competition. The fact that now there is a Europa League analogue in the women's game as well will also help.
Europa Cup.
Yes.
Took them a while to come up with that, I think.
Will also help some of the more disappointing 4th place finishes that have happened previously. So this is a team that is growing and developing. I'm not sure if I can quite say thriving, because unfortunately the distance between them and Chelsea at the top of the WSL seems to be getting bigger. However, that is the case for everyone in the WSL. I'm among a number of fans who thought Chelsea would have a little bit of a dip when Emma Hayes departed, only to be rudely awakened. So the United team is doing well. There is that frustration that could the United team be doing better if 3 or 4 things were changed and the United were more aggressive. Having looked at attempts at being aggressive in the men's side, perhaps that eagerness to improve quickly, perhaps it's better that the women's team doesn't have that same eagerness. Perhaps the work that's currently being done to maintain the floor and the baseline of this squad is good enough for now. And then when better opportunities arrive to pounce on the top 2 or top 1 places in the WSL, they'll be better and ready for it.
I completely understand Kevin's sentiment. Kevin, I've noted your comments. Don't worry. But Ineos is important to consider as the backdrop. You have to, it's not just going to disappear if your owner says, the priority is on the men's team. But also you have to remember that we have standards, and Manchester United need to meet those standards, especially when your counterparts such as Chelsea and Arsenal and Manchester City are driving those standards as well. On the one hand, the women's team are left to themselves, really, to crack on. And that's quite good because you can craft it how you like, regardless, budgets and executive decision-making aside. On the other hand, because you don't have that accountability and you don't have that someone saying, well, have you done this and have you done that? The day-to-day operations and player and staff recruitment and long-term planning may not be closely looked at from, an operations point of view. And that's really important for the women's team as well, that we're driving those standards. So, yeah, I understand Kevin's point of view, but I do think that we still have covered the amazing backstory of Fallon Tullis-Joyce and Elizabeth Turland and interviews with Honor Battier. So, yeah, we just have to report as balanced and as fairly and as close to the truth as we can.
Some of them comments were from Jim Ratcliffe in the interview that I did with him. I think in the interest of fairness, I should say that Omar Barada, when I spoke to him in the summer, was particularly keen to talk about the women's team. And he said the women's team have just had a good season. Mark Skinner's done a really good job. And, we lost some big names last summer, such as Honor, for example. Omar said there's been a focus on young players. Even the captain, Maya, is only 24, but she shows incredible leadership skills. Grace Clinton has done well after coming back on loan from Spurs. I watch the women's team. I've always been very passionate about women's football. And Mark, to be fair, he's had to deal with not the best set of circumstances at the beginning of the season because we had to make the changes in Carrington where the players change and that kind of stuff. We have been distracted with all the issues around the men's first team, but we're committed to making the women's team very successful. As you've heard Jim say, if you're wearing a United shirt, then you must win, and that's exactly how I feel. A club of our scale has a responsibility to grow football in general and to contribute to women's football.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the summer transfer window is nearly over, Charlotte. As we speak now, it's Thursday evening, and there's only, 11 o'clock it closes tonight, so we've got about 6 hours to go. It looks like United will have 3 players through the door. They can add Jess Park from Manchester City to the signings they've already confirmed at this point. Frido Rolfo and Julia Zigiotti-Olmo, who've joined from Barcelona and Bayern Munich, 2 Swedish internationals. Impressive, I think, the arrivals of those 2 players. It improves United's starting team, I think, is the general theme of how people are talking about these arrivals. On Jess Park, then, we expect that to be confirmed. What do we think about this deal? Because it's quite surprising in a way that United are losing Grace Clinton, considering the comments that Omar Barada has made to Andy there. She's impressed as well since being in the first team at United. But actually, in a way, it shows United are learning a lesson because she was out of contract next summer, and you won't be adding her name to Mary Earps and Alessia Russo and others who've left on a free. United have at least got a transfer fee for her.
On the one hand, yeah, they have not let a player run down their contract, and the club have acknowledged that was disruptive in the past. And so if a player doesn't want to sign a new deal or wants to leave, then they've made that work and they've brought in a more than adequate replacement in Jess Park, and Clinton's valuation was higher than Park, so United will receive a sum as a profit as well. The question, on the other hand, fans will be really, really disappointed that you've lost another talented player, and you have to ask why. And if that should have been done a year ago in the kind of squad planning and thinking, well, why doesn't a player like Grace Clinton, who played for England at the European Championships, want to stay at United? Like, is she being pushed? Is she being stimulated? Does she feel like her football career can really thrive here? So it goes deeper. You have to scratch beneath the surface. I think it's a convenient move for all parties involved. If a player wants to move, Park wants game time, and Clinton was, attracted by City's prospect. That's another thing. Going to a rival club who isn't in the Champions League. So you think, okay, my future is better at a club that is not in the Champions League at the moment, but I'm seeing potentially a brighter future in years to come.
Why, Charlotte? Why do you think she wants to do that?
Sometimes it's a fit. And if you don't feel like you're thriving there, I think Grace spoke very clearly about how she really flourished at Spurs under Robert Villaham, and she felt she was really confident, and that loan move, she wanted more game time there. Apart from that, I don't know, Andy.
What are they getting in Jess Park, Charlotte?
No nonsense, feisty, drives at players, good ball carrier, does the work, can drop into pockets, more of a number 10 and more of an attacking midfielder than Clinton. Clinton was kind of a hybrid between a number 8 and a number 10, the engine of an 8 and the quality of a 10. Well, Park is more of an attacking midfielder. Given there are injuries to Leah Galton and Fridolina Rolfo, there's space on the left for either Melvine Mallard and Celine Bizet. So that means there's not that much cover on the right. Park fills that role quite naturally because she could play on the right and then cut into that pocket.
So two tens with Park and Ella Toone.
Exactly. I think it'll depend if Skinner has spoken about playing a double pivot with Miyazawa and the new signing of Zijotti Olme. Mm-hmm. So then ahead of them, you would either have Toone or Park, or if Park is on the right as well, then they could combine well, having played together at England. So, Jess Park just wants to play. She's eager, she's fresh, she's hungry.
Yeah, like everyone is for this new season, hopefully, and as you are, to get all the transfer business stories done for today as well, Charlotte. So I'll let you go. Thanks very much for being with us again on Talk of the Devils.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Brilliant. And we'll leave it there for the show as well. So Carl and Andy, thank you so much for being with us as well. We'll be back next week as we look ahead to United beginning, again, the men's side, of course, in the Premier League. And also we'll see how the women get on against Leicester too. But thanks for your company. Get in touch, devilspod@theathletic.com, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching this episode of Talk of the Devils. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you've not done already. Like the video and also get involved in the comments too, and click the bell to make sure that you never miss an episode with myself, Andy Mitten, Carl Anker and Laurie Whitwell. There's also our social channels @TOT Devils on Instagram, X and TikTok. Thanks for watching.